and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Council met on October 17th for the second reading and the adoption of the 2024 budget. Councilmember Pete Iverson read off the budget.
Finance, this ordinance resolution will be in full force and effect from and after its passage and approval by the Monroe County Council. Funds, name Special Fire General. Adopted budget is $14,995,240. The adopted tax levy is $9,013,801, and the adopted tax rate is 0.2546. For Special Cume Fire, the adopted budget is $1,178,766. The adopted tax levy is $1,215,418, and the adopted tax rate is 0.0333, for a total adopted budget of $16,174,006. A total adopted tax levy of $10,229,219, and a total adopted tax rate of 0.2879.
The Council voted to approve the Monroe Fire Protection District 2024 budget and the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District 2024 budget. Before voting on the Monroe County 2024 budget, Councilmember Marty Hawk asked about the amount set for the debt levy. Council President Kate Wiltz responded.
Could you remind me, I'm speaking to County Attorney, why the debt service levy is where it is?
It's still listed at $5 million instead of the lower amount.
Council Administrator Kim Schell added that the higher amount was put in during budgeting, but will be changed after the Department of Local Government Finance finalizes the paperwork.
That amount is what we put in with regards, to budgeting. When the paperwork is finalized on the GO bond, then DLGF will make those changes after they receive all that documentation. So we leave it as is until they go through and then they fix it.
Hawk asked about the amount of money the bond was advertised for, saying it was advertised as $5 million instead of the $4.4 million they adopted. County Attorney Jeff Cockrell said at last week's first hearing of the budget, the council approved a $3.1 million general obligation bond.
I'll just remind that at last week's council meeting, the council approved the bond documentation for a $3.1 million bond. This is sent to the state gets a copy of it, and the state, when they do their, I want to call them 16-line statements, but they have a much more advanced and technical name than that. The 1782 statements, when they come in, it will only put in the amount of what the debt is, or the debt payments are actually, and then it will adjust the rate accordingly. So at the end of the day, the amount on the tax bill next year will be reflective of a $3.1 million bond.
Hawk said that she is not comfortable advertising the bond as $4.4 million, as it gives the council legal room to use $4.4 instead of the $3.1 million. Cockrell responded and shared that there are time constraints to approving the bond.
So I did remember the right number, and
yes.
I did remember that they advertised it at that $5 million. But I'm not comfortable with advertising it now at the $4.4 million, because could this council then adjust that bond number up to 4.4? Because we've already advertised it at 4.4, adopting it at 4.4.
I am not bond counsel, so I do not know the answer to that. I do know that the appropriation, which will be on your next agenda, next Tuesday's agenda, reflects the $3.1 million. I suppose technically, I think if there were time, by now and the end of the year, a new bond could have been issued for the remaining amount, but I don't foresee that happening.
County Auditor Catherine Smith added that she discussed the issue with the Department of Local Government Finance, and they said it would not make a difference what it is advertised as.
Okay, so I discussed this with the DLGF, and they will adjust the rate accordingly, as everyone else has told you as well. And this is outside of our levy, and we're only, obviously, however the bond is closed, that's how it will be. So it's going to be at the 3.1. The DLGF said not to. They advised that we could change it, but it didn't make a difference. So I just didn't at that point in time. However, I can. It truly is just not going to make a difference unless we're going to scramble here at the end of the year and try to have another bond approved at this point.
Iverson said he was comfortable with moving forward due to the advice of the county attorney and the county auditor.
Council is correct. We talked about this previously. DLGF is weighing in and saying the same thing that council is saying. I think we are being very transparent here. I think even the advertised amounts that are here are going to be, adjusted as the agreement is between our auditor's office and council. So I'm comfortable with the way things are, given the advice that we're getting, and also, the conversation we had, what was it, a week ago? So those are my feelings on this matter.
Hawk remarked that the debt levy is set high initially. However, at this point in time, she would like it to be set in stone.
Well, that debt, when you first advertise it during the local budget notice, you set it high because you don't really know what we, the council, are going to decide. And so they set it high enough so that we could have that debate to decide how much we were going to do. But at this point in time, now you're setting a rate. If you look at that debt service, you're seeing that rate. Mm-hmm. And we vote on this for that higher amount with that rate. And if between now and the time we actually move forward with the bond, we haven't, right?
Right.
We haven't sold the bond. Somebody says, oh, we've got this other good plan, and we've advertised high enough we can do it. I'm saying legally, you probably could. So I did try to reach DLGF today to talk to Fred, and he was not in. But at any rate, there you go. I can't help but call our attention to it.
I appreciate it. Because I agree that I would rather be more accurately reflective of our intent. Mm-hmm.
To be off by $1 million just to put in some extra because we need to make sure we got interest to cover. I mean, that might make everybody feel comfortable going, oh, well, we've got it at least high enough. That's comfortable for everyone except for the people we represent, which is the public.
Council President Kate Wiltz agreed she would like it to be accurate. However, she did not want to alter the official budget at the official budget meeting.
Hesitate to change this mid-meeting simply because I don't want to have to do the math that in the other columns might be affected and mess it up and this is the official reading. So I just want to express my concern and hope that, as Councilor Munson pointed out, that it has been clear to the public and the media that our intent with the debt service is a lower budgeted amount than is currently listed.
Council member Trent Deckard commented that they will ensure it will remain at the agreed upon $3.1 million amount.
I would say that my intent also is that 3.1 million. And I mean, we're saying this in front of our county treasurer, we're saying it in front of representatives from our auditor, in front of the media, in front of the folks at home. That is my intent, and I'm going to earmark this as an item that I watch intently to make sure that that intent is followed through. And I think that is our duty to do. At the same time, I will say this: we are at a point where the work on this budget has brought us to this point. And so my takeaway is that work we've done does move forward. My intent now is to watch this, which is what I was hired to do by the taxpayers, and I took their instructions seriously. I appreciate Councilor Hawks pointing this out. Now we have to watch it. and move forward, in my humble opinion.
The council voted 5-1 to approve the Monroe County 2024 budget, with Council Member Marty Hawk voting no. They also approved the Monroe County's 2024 salary ordinance for elected officials and Monroe County employees. The next Monroe County Council meeting will be held on November 14th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The Bloomington City Council met on Wednesday, October 18th. The meeting began with a report from Holly Warren, Interim Director of Economic and Sustainable Development and Assistant Director for the Arts, and Gerard Panakowick, Chair of the Bloomington Arts Commission. Warren introduced a new microgrant program that will be available to the public.
So we've got all of these amazing public art projects going on, and we constantly have people reaching out to us with ideas. How can I do this in my backyard? How can I do this on the side of my small business? And I would love to say we can help all of these folks and shepherd them through each and every one of these processes, but we are a committee of volunteers mostly. I am one person for the arts. So we put together a revised public art master plan, which we really see as a toolkit that we can share with our community members to empower them to undertake these projects mostly on their own. We will, of course, always be here to guide them, but we are really wanting to encourage the public to take advantage of this master plan to do things like block parties, like musical performances, like murals in their own backyards. So in addition to releasing this revised public art master plan as a toolkit, we're simultaneously going to release a suite of 10 microgrants of up to $1,000 each to, again, really incentivize our residents to take advantage of this program. We're gonna launch all of this tomorrow. So you can go to our website, you can see the URL there. We've also got a QR code available, and of course we're gonna do a pretty aggressive marketing campaign of this project just to make sure that this opportunity lands up in the hands of those who need it most.
The report ended with the discussion of a possible self-guided audio tour of all Bloomington public art pieces and an invitation to attend future Art Commission meetings on the second Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. in person or on Zoom. Later in the meeting, Ordinance 23-28 was moved to be adopted by Councilmember Dave Rollo, and a summary was read by the City Clerk, Nicole Bolden.
This ordinance amends Title 15, Vehicles and Traffic of the Bloomington Municipal Code, and comes forth at the request of City staff, the Parking Commission, and the Traffic Commission, and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Commission. The ordinance makes the following changes. It empowers the city engineer and chief of police to make and enforce regulations necessary to effectuate the provisions of Title 15. It removes 2 stop intersections and adds 6 stop intersections. It allows two-way travel for bicycles on a portion of Henderson Street. It decreases the maximum speed limit on a portion of 17th Street. It adds back and angle parking on Pete Ellis Drive. Adds no parking spaces on 8th Street, Southern Drive, Swain Avenue, Wilson Street, and 3rd Street. It removes limited parking zones on Allen Street, 8th Street, Swain Avenue, and 3rd Street, and adds a limited parking zone on 3rd Street. It adds a loading zone on the 2800 block of East Longview Avenue, and adds a bus zone to 3rd Street.
The ordinance was discussed at length by council members. During public comment on the ordinance, Bloomington resident Sue Tui asked the council to consider lowering the speed limit on Arlington Road and 17th Street.
I'd like to just follow up on President Scambaluri's. She mentioned the idea of 17th Street between Jackson and Monroe, that it's currently proposed to reduce the speed to 30, and there is a possibility of reducing it to 25. So that street, many people probably don't go down it, but this is if you're going west on 17th Street past what was that restaurant with the pink pigs in front of it in Napa Auto? And then you'll go past Tri-North Middle School, and then there'll be a roundabout. So that street, that stretch of street is listed as Schedule 1, it's called the exceptions. Instead of being 25 like other city streets are, this is in the city, it was at 35. So at the last meeting, Councilmember Volin mentioned the 2019 traffic, what's that called, the transportation plan. So if you look at that on page 35, figure 19, that stretch of road is actually labeled general urban. It's in front of a school. So it's something to consider. And if it's not considered this time, I'd urge council, maybe the whole council, to ask whoever would do it, transportation and planning probably, to reconsider that corridor all the way west to the bypass. I live on that road, and I'm in the Crescent Bend Neighborhood Association Executive Committee. We would like to get that lowered, speed lowered too. It's at 30. And also Arlington Road, which, believe it or not, is at 40. So people are going southeast on Arlington Road, coming from across the bypass, and hitting the roundabout at 40. You'll see the signs that are missing now all the way down to the edge of the ground. So anyway, just something to consider, if not this time, maybe for the next time this round is brought up. Thank you.
The amended ordinance passed unanimously. The meeting ended with a 3-5 failed motion by Councilmember Dave Rollo in an effort to reverse the mayoral veto of Ordinance 23-23 by Mayor John Hamilton that would have added stop signs at various locations on 7th Street. The next Bloomington City Council meeting will be held on November 1st at 6:30 p.m. During the October 18th meeting of the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees, Director Greer Carson delivered his monthly report on the status of MCPL.
For last month, overall collection use continues to increase this year, though we saw a slight dip in the September numbers compared to August. The average collection use for 2023 is stronger than it was in 2022, which is always what we want to see. We've recently upgraded our circulating Wi-Fi hotspots to 5G from 4G through our contract with T-Mobile. And I reflected on this. We've actually quintupled the size of this collection over the last 5 years due to its popularity. We are developing our partnership with Bachelor Middle School as librarians, teachers, and administrators are connecting on many opportunities. The faculty are bringing students over for structured visits. The after-school crowd is enormous and energetic. And I want to thank our Southwest branch manager, Kathy Riley, and her outstanding team, including librarians, library assistants, material handlers, security staff, and custodians. They're connecting with patrons on the hour. They're handling an increasing number of holds and checkouts. They're working with bachelor students within the teen space and really throughout the entire building and the grounds, and overall managing our new branch brilliantly. And speaking of Southwest, we coordinated an exciting photo shoot of the branch for the purposes of marketing, posterity, and eventual submission of this building project to numerous library and architectural publications in the near future. We engaged an architectural photographer from Chicago for a 2-day shoot, and are eagerly awaiting the finished results. Our business partners at Matthew Architects, RJE, Furniture Design, Educational Furniture, Library Shelving, and others have all agreed to split the cost of this photo shoot since they will also benefit from these publicity photos. So we're excited to see those.
Carson also notified the board that a final draft of the library system's strategic plan should be ready in December for adoption. Next, the Board of Trustees heard an update on benefits and open enrollment for next year. JA Benefits Account Executive Alyssa Prince provided the update.
So as you guys all remember probably, last year we were able to get a decrease by switching to Anthem. SIHO started out a little bit higher. We weren't able to get them to come down a lot, so it ended up working out well to switch to Anthem. For 2024, which you can see on there as well, it started at about a 14% on the initial renewal, and we were able to get that to hold to a 0, and then have been able to get an additional premium credit that results in about a negative 5% whenever you include that as well.
Board trustee Nichelle Whitney Wash asked for clarification on whether or not they could increase the amount of medical providers to make the plan more attractive to library employees.
You all have any influence over changing providers as well? Like, are we able to increase the number of underrepresented providers to make this plan more attractive to our employees?
As far as the
like medical providers?
I will let Corey speak to that if possible. JA does a lot of work with hospitals and trying to do some direct contracts and things like that, but he could probably speak better to that a little bit on some of the things that we have done.
Yeah, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can
Excellent.
hear you.
On the phone, traveling today, so thanks for letting me zoom in. In general, Anthem has a very broad network, and SIHO previously had a network, and most of the time that is controlled and operated and kind of managed by the insurance carrier. We have done direct primary care programs in the past, and the library is participating in that to try to make sure access to care is as accessible as possible, knowing how difficult it can be to get in to providers. With regard to representation or potentially which providers are in network, I would say Anthem is probably the broadest network in the state, with many, if not all, hospitals in the state included. And then the provider practices are, again, subject to their network terms. But from a representation perspective, I don't know if that answers your question on access or with regard to which providers are actually in network. So I'd be happy to take a follow-up question if I didn't quite answer it.
No actions were taken on the 2024 benefits and open enrollment. The MCPL Board of Trustees will meet again on November 15th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
Do you know that thousands of children go without school supplies every day? Teachers Warehouse is a 100% volunteer-powered organization. We service the educational and creative needs of students in Monroe, Brown, Greene, Lawrence, and Owen counties by distributing school supplies free to the teachers. Teachers Warehouse is composed of 7 rooms filled with books, pencils, paper, and even tools to motivate students. If it's in a classroom, we'll supply it. To donate new or gently used school supplies or volunteer, give us a call at 812-929-7522 or email us at contact@teacherswarehouse.net.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Ellettsville Town Council meeting on October 16th, Planning Director Denise Line introduced Ordinance 2023-14, which would establish a requirement for developers to post bond for existing streets.
You know, we have a lot of construction going on in Ellettsville, and sometimes adjacent subdivisions are affected. by construction on a separate site that doesn't pertain to the particular development where the street damage occurs. So many times KIP has to work with a developer to try to get him to pay part of it or all of it. And the town shouldn't be responsible for repairing those streets because it is on the developer. So we requested Darla prepare this ordinance so we can bond the streets. Developers have a $100,000 bond to cover any street repairs for their duration, for adjacent properties, for adjacent developments for the duration of the project.
Councilman Scott Oldham had questions and concerns regarding the definitions and specifics of the ordinance.
That is my question. Are we doing it by weight? And at what level do they have to have this? If it's a guy building one house, does he have to insure this? Do we have to have the $100,000, or is there a size or a weight or a contemplated size of the equipment or something like that?
The council debated the definition of adjacent streets, how long they'd hold the bond for, and potential construction routes, but eventually decided to table the ordinance for a future meeting. Lastly, the adoption of the 2024 budget and tax rates were approved. The next Ellettsville Town Council meeting will be held on October 23rd. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.